Hello, my name is Revi Sterling, and I'm delighted to join this amazing community of mappers and data activists today. It takes a proven, powerful initiative like humanitarian OpenStreetMaps to move the needle in community development work and international development. And I'm looking forward to sharing examples of that from working with HOT and its partners over the last few years. We've known for decades that the only way to make sustainable positive change is with participatory programming. And yet in international development, almost every intervention is top-down, developed by experts sitting in Geneva or Washington, D.C., who claim to know what will work to lift people out of poverty because we've studied it so much. And this is not to disparage these people, I'm one of them, but to check the methods that we use and to check them really well. There's a reason why so many development efforts fail and communities are tired and wary of outside projects. We aren't including local perspectives and knowledge, and most often we aren't hearing from women. What I want to do in the next few minutes is share my experiences with HOT to show what a remarkable tool it is, as you all know, but in my case, in closing the gender digital divide, which is the area that I focus on, and how I've seen where mapping literally makes women visible and gives them opportunities for empowerment that couldn't be done in any other way. This little internet kiosk is in Matete, Kenya, and is part of a program that I worked on several years ago. And while this little stall is far from a paved road, it does provide internet, printing, and lamination services for the surrounding community. And one of the very first thing that the proprietor did was search for her kiosk, using good old Google Maps. In this case, I think it was Google Earth. But the fact is that this is what she wanted to do first, the second she had connectivity. And we've all seen the power of this. So when you have a true, indisputable online presence, you exist, at a global scale. And often I've seen this as one of the first requests. Let me see where I am. Let me put myself on a map. It's really a psychological boost. And in some ways, it's bigger as a boost than perhaps even the commercial potential of this kiosk. Development is inherently a psychological activity. It's a person deciding they want to make a change for the better, which is often full of tension and goes against social and cultural norms, especially where women are concerned. And then when you add technology to that, there's a whole different set of affordances and tensions that come when you're working at the intersection of development, gender, and technology. And to me, there are no more powerful forms of transformation than women and technology, and yet the two do not coexist very happily in most cases. We know that women's empowerment and advancement is absolutely the key to sustainable community development, because women take care of the education and the health and the general well-being of families and communities. We know that digital technology and services can scale and sustain programs in ways that were unimaginable 10, 20 years ago. But the fact is that women don't have the same opportunities to use technology for all sorts of reasons that go back to being recorded in 1997, when the first mobile phones and laptops were coming to community media centers and to families. Women have lower skills, they have lower purchasing power, they have lessened efficacy, self-efficacy and confidence than men. There's all of these barriers that are really well studied as to why women don't have the same access and use and experience with technology as men do. And yet technologists continue to think of technology and software, hardware, apps, etc., as just this agnostic, degendered tool that anybody can use. And the fact is that the social norms and cultural fabric is what dictates who gets to use what, how, and when. And women continually are excluded from the same opportunities that men have with technology. The technology is not distributed equitably, and so information uptake and sharing is not an equitable activity. And to me, that's digital development shooting itself in the foot, because we just keep, in our quest to create equitable solutions, we actually exacerbate and in some cases introduce new ones, and that is not development. But this is where I think HOT has a very unique opportunity, because it really addresses social norms and opportunities in a way that make it both palatable and appropriate and super powerful in communities. Here's a case showing that the incomparable Rebecca Firth with a student in Peru working on a mapping project there that I had the privilege and honor to go visit. But in so many cases, in so many communities where you have women that don't have information, what does that mean, especially in a time of climate change and maybe political instability and COVID? How do you even interact anymore if you don't have a phone or the internet? And that's something that we have to keep in mind. 4 billion people do not have access to the internet. 1 billion people do not have a mobile phone or access to using a mobile phone. The greatest percentage of those two numbers, those populations, are women. And yes, we know the barriers, and yet it's really hard to get a technology company or development industry, development agency to say, yes, we're going to focus very specifically on the gender digital divide. And yet there would be a huge boon if they did. I mean, look at some of the economic statistics right there, but that's very hard to do when you look at this quote from Alliance for Affordable Internet, which I see again and again. If women and poverty mean that women do not have access, to phones and to the very information that could truly help them with sustainable development in their communities. In fact, many communities I work in have actually banned women's cell phone use and have banned internet use, and it's only working carefully and thoughtfully with the gatekeepers and the people, the husbands, the mother-in-laws, the churches and clerics and community leaders to understand the root issues of their fear of women online. Can we even start to change that? And that takes time, that takes budget, it takes a lot of effort, it takes special skills, and that's just not necessarily interesting or fast enough for a lot of tech companies that just want to make sure that women have cell phones and automatically they'll be entrepreneurs and we'll close the gender digital divide. If that was the case, we would have done it a long time ago. Of course, mapping requires technology, and the kind of technology available to poor and remote women, if they do have access to it, looks a lot like this. No, most of them outside of cities do not have smartphones, and we have to quit thinking in that mentality first and foremost. But, a lot of applications and services are built thinking that they have the same sort of, technology that we do, or that it's accessible. And yes, prices have come down immensely, and I think there's great promise in things like the KaiOS phone, where you can run Android apps on a smart feature phone that's much less of a price point than a smartphone. But on top of that, the applications and services are created by people like me. I am not a rural Tanzanian girl. I am not a woman outside of Cusco whose opportunities are limited by machismo and the patriarchy. And this is nothing new. Back in 1967, a computer scientist named Conway first talked about biases and prejudices in technologies that are perpetuated by the creators of it. We build things how we would use them. And half a century later, we are seeing the cases, in practice of the racism and sexism in the hardware and software that were not designed for the very people they were, that are using them now. These conversations are happening, especially with artificial intelligence and with health ethics, etc. And when women and other marginalized populations, start a mapping project, it just reverses that paradigm beautifully because it's under their terms. They're using technology as a tool to address a different thing, a societal or environmental, issue, or some sort of, reason, some sort of issue that's driving the mapping. And it's a great way. I mean, I've just seen it. It's hard to explain, but you see that the project drives cell phone and technology adoption, and thus it's not seen necessarily as this disruptive technology that's going to affect the status quo and women are going to cheat now that they have phones and they're going to do this stuff. It's seen as a vehicle for improving a larger societal issue, and I've seen a lot less gendered dynamics and challenge women's use and uptake and adoption of mobile services. resources. So in any case, I would also like to make a plug for the fact that we don't have great maps of women's technology usage. And that could be a whole different other talk about the indicators and data that we use to map the gender digital divide and how broken that is. But if you want another project, I'm your girl. Let's return to kind of looking at connectivity, though, and technology use by women, which is obviously prerequisite to doing any mapping. There is a persistent and growing gender digital divide, and that's not great news. Some countries have made some amazing efforts in closing the gender digital divide, but it actually is growing, and women's internet use and uptake of new technology is actually lagging at a rate far behind men, even though it is increasing annually. This growing gender digital divide is what really inspired the Women Connect Challenge, which I designed and have managed since its inception and now boasts 5 different global programs. HOT and its partners were award recipients of the first and what I think of as the most important round of Women Connect Challenge, because these initial projects formed the basis and the evidence base for what we know works and doesn't in getting more women online and engaging in digital development strategies. And again, from that first round forward, we see the recurrence of 5 proven strategies that are effective in engaging women, plus the people and institutions that influence women's lives, like husbands and community and religious leaders and institutions, and enable women to engage more digitally and then enjoy the benefits of those digital dividends. And what's remarkable, and most of our projects hit 1 or 2 of these beautifully. That's what they're designed around. HOT projects actually demonstrate all 5 of these proven strategies, which is a really huge accomplishment and a testament to the team and its thoughtfulness in program design and deployment, as the next 5 slides will show. If we start with social norms, you see that in this case, a 15-year-old boy who will likely be a father in the next few years himself has become aware of gender stereotypes in the home and professionally, and is able to contest these norms while tracking the spaces and places in his community that have conformist gender stereotypes and look at the opportunities to challenge them. And I really love that HOT and its partners put these beautiful pictorials together for our use. I think that there's no better power than quotes that come exactly from the people they're intended to use. And literally all the photos in this presentation have been the HOT projects that Women Connect Challenge has funded. So really excited to see that people really are using this. So I think that, hopefully Raymer will grow up to be an incredible chef in his community and show that example to both men and women. A female classmate in the same mapping project is experiencing that both boys and girls can map because she herself is mapping. And in doing so, she's experiencing the potential that mapping has and seeing that it can affect socioeconomic conditions because she's literally putting the truth on the map. At 15, these students are showing a maturity that cannot help but positively affect their futures as they go through this as a cohort, as a co-ed group of students that are going to be the next leaders in their communities. And by talking with some of these students when I got to visit Rebecca and this project, they're already talking about the impact that this work is having on their parents and on their younger siblings. So the end-to-end impact of this HOT project in itself just cannot be underestimated. With our third effective strategy and proven practice, cultivating women's confidence, being able to do something that is at once visible and useful can't help but be a skills and confidence booster, as this quote shows. This is just amazing. Again, here's a 14-year-old girl who could very much already be in that thread of following the social norms that she was raised as part of, and she's looking at it and going, wait a minute, I can do this. And across my work for the last 20 years, I've heard from women and girls constantly that they're too dumb to use a phone or the internet or that software. They've really internalized the gender stereotypes that have been put on them, and they feel worthless to engage in their lives. And thus, they can't really have a meaningful development initiative participation because they're really stuck in the mindset that they are less than. And this kind of testament is what every young person could feel with these kinds of opportunities. And that comes from her mapping. So to me, this is just, it's both mind-blowing and also so obvious. And that's why there need to be more projects like this. And we're going to move over to our hot project in Tanzania. Just take a little plane ride from Cusco. There is this need to create hardware and software platforms that, quote unquote, meet women where they're at. That we have to be able to support women's information needs, because if you have to learn another language, another skill, another this on top of learning the technology and trying to do your job and balance this, it's just a tax. And so for this female police officer in Tanzania, the mapping software directly helps her do her job. It's a direct benefit. She's gotten appropriate and useful training on it. It's not too cumbersome. It runs on her older model, hand-me-down smartphone, and the data and the information is timely and accurate, which is why she's been able to respond quickly to gender-based violence reports and save lives. And it was really remarkable. A teammate from mine on the Women Connect Challenge got to go and meet with this police officer and did a really wonderful video about this. And it's just amazing. Here's a woman who's so amazing already as a role model and a leader and someone truly saving women. And she realizes that she can do so much more because she has this mapping technology. Finally, mapping has helped this entire community to visualize the negative effects of gender-based violence, including female genital mutilation. I mean, having the data makes instances irrefutable, and that is what really is necessary to lead to the major shifts that are necessary in the laws, policies, and individual behaviors changing. And to me, that's really the power of the HOT platform and mappers and helping teach people how to map, is that then you have the data, and the data is the truth.